Okay, so I'm gonna talk about emuses. So it's emerging properties mapping using spatial embedding statistics. It's still a work in progress towards the end, but there would be so much development that we could do. Um, uh, yep. Okay. The Zoom is working. It's fine. Okay, cool. The idea of emuses is to try to solve a problem of how to model and explain the emerging properties in high-dimensional, complex and noisy data. When we use classic statistics, um, when multiple causes explain our variable, the multiple causes can compete with each other, and thus we lose statistical power. And also, classic statistics are not always very good at figuring out what causes should be separated, should be associated, and sometimes some causes are ignored. Um, a method to try to avoid these problems is machine learning, but as you probably know, it requires a lot of data, and especially annotated data when we're doing supervised learning. And it's also often difficult to interpret, and it's the classic black box issue. So the objectives of emuses is to allow the use of many different types of data. It's not only for neuroimaging. The idea is that when you have a type of data that you can put it into a matrix, one vector for each of your observations, it can go in emuses. That doesn't mean that it's going to find something, but you can at least input it. And the goal is to train and optimize prediction models that can be regression type models. So you're trying to predict continuous values or classification problems. And also, we're trying to extract and explain the variables that are making the model reach these predictions. So that's one advantage of the method. And if we go a little bit in more details, the idea is to take your high-dimensional data, your complex and noisy data, then we embed it into UMAP, or you saw we kind of love UMAP here. And then we run statistics. So it's the same idea as the disconnectome symptom discoverer, but here we can do it on a bunch of other data types, data modalities. And we train, optimize machine learning models that will explore this embedding space and create predictions. So we also have like, of course, we have to validate the performance. When we have an optimized model, we can create these heat maps. We just tell the model predict the value in a grid in the space, and we get this heat map. And that gives us an idea of where in the space we have higher or lower values depending on if we are interested in a deficit or high performance. And then we do some clustering using HDB scan. I think it was mentioned before, to separate the different clusters, because we don't know if these points are the same as these points in terms of profile. So the UMAP is modeling the variability that we have in our data sets, but we also want to see if we can extract different profiles. It's not just all the points that have the value that we're interested in. And then in these separate clusters, we are calculating the effect size maps. So we're seeing how often these the variables that we input, so our high dimensional data. So we come back to the high dimensional data and we have how often, how strong these values are helping the prediction in that specific cluster. And so we had a lot of discussion with people about the UMAP, because the parameters, there are a lot of parameters in UMAP, and that can cause some variability in the output space. So what we're doing is we optimize the UMAP. We are using the clustering as well, because we are trying to strike a balance between clustering and spread in the space, because we don't want just a cloud of randomly distributed points, because we can't really do statistics in there. But also we don't want like tiny little clusters super far apart, where we couldn't even separate different structures. So we need a balance between the two. So we are doing some optimization. So that's done for you if you want, but you can also input your parameters, or you can run the optimization, and then if you need to run it later, you can just input the parameters that you found were good, and it's going to be faster, of course. And yeah, we tried on an example. So that's the NIST data set is handwritten digits, and in each pixel you have the value of the writing. And the idea was to test a classification method, and also to benchmark the method. And when we're training, we're using nested cross-validation, all the good practices, and we are outputting a heat map. It's the combined confidence here. It's the prediction weighted with the confidence of the model. So that's why here it's a classification, so it would be 0 or 1, but there is also the confidence of the model that tells us if the model was, well, confident. And also these predictions are out of sample, so it's not just the training set, of course, or even the validation set. It's data that's not been seen. And to show one advantage of the method, when we come back to the high dimensional data, when we perform the effect size calculation on our separate clusters, we can retrieve the different profiles in our input data. So here it's not very clear at first. The idea is to predict whether in the space we have a 1, so the handwritten digits, if they are ones or other digits. And when we do that with emuses and retrieve the different clusters that we identify, we can actually identify. So here, if I don't know if you can see, you have the one with the serif top. So that's like the French one. We learn to make it like that. The straight one is more like the British way of writing it. And this one is a little bit less clear, but you can see the footed one. Yeah. So you can see the foot of the one. I don't know which countries, or maybe just people learning like that. So yeah, we that shows that we can identify different profiles in the data, even though we are trying to predict the same variable. So that's one part of the explainable AI, which is pretty interesting to avoid the black box problem. And that's just the performance that we had on these data sets. So of course that's a toy example. That's not really interesting for neuroimaging, but just to show that the method can reach pretty decent performance. But then if we go to the brain, so that's what you saw, the disconnector maps, the probability of being disconnected in every voxel. It's actually the data sets that was presented several times. It's the data set of the disconnectome symptom discoverer, so 1,333 images. Um, and if yes, one problem that we often have in neuroscience is that we don't have a lot of labeled data. And in the case of the DSD, so that was the same data set, only 139 disconnectomes are associated with clinical scores. So if you're just training a machine learning model on that, that might be difficult to find good results. And also, we have a lot of noisy variables. The maps are 1 million voxels, so our input dimensions are 1 million. It makes it pretty difficult when we use classic machine learning. But with emuses, we can take advantage of unlabeled data. Same with the disconnectome symptom discoverer. We first model the variability in this disconnectome dataset. And then there is also the clustering. So as I explained, that's the data of the DSD. And this part is totally unsupervised. So if you had another type of data that you want to explore and you only have a small labeled data set, if you have access to a bigger data set but that doesn't have your psychological scores or your task scores, you can still model the variability that could be. I haven't tried with fMRI, but that could be interesting to try if we have like resting state fMRI and a task, or different tasks and a specific task. Well, I'll show you, but the idea is to build a community of people who will try the tool and see what works, how we can optimize it, if there are some options that people want. Um, so if we do it with the disconnectomes, we can retrieve the clusters. So that was just an example. If we, for the basic word discrimination, we get, so these ones are a little bit unspecific. So I improved the method a lot since I made this, but I didn't rerun this specific example. I tried to run it yesterday, but it was a little bit too long on my laptop. Um, and also, another example of data that is not neuroimaging, it's the HCP young adult data. I just took the phenotypical data. So it's a spreadsheet with 117 non-imaging measures. And in these, in the variables that were available, there were measures of fluid intelligence, crystal intelligence, and I tried to predict the fluid intelligence here based on these 117 measures. So as I said, we embed the data, cluster it, and then we train the prediction model. So of course, it's very noisy. It's a very difficult variable to predict. But we still have, I think it's a pretty decent prediction performance. And we can extract the different variables. I actually didn't look at the variables in detail, but we can extract the different variables that are most explaining the different clusters that were identified by the tool. So just a conclusion for what the tool is doing. It's a general tool to explore the emerging properties, to create prediction models and also explain the predictions that we find. And it is a tool that builds prediction models, so other tools. So everybody should be able to create their own prediction models and also share them. It's open source, so I just made the code public. It's still a work in progress. And over time, we will improve the tool with new data types that can be more easily inputted, maybe some visualization and so on. For now, just the CLI, the command line interface, is available, and I'll make a GUI when everything is working as I wanted. And we're hoping to have a community around it. Um, so just a little list of the features that are now available. So we can train the full pipeline. We can also run the inference. So with also the third thing, the model registry, you can register your model on. So you train a model, you have your UMAP and your prediction models, and you can install it on your computer. So like even if you, so it's going to copy it in a separate folder, and then it can be found by the tool. So if you use it in command line, you can, and then there will be the graphic interface, but you can rerun, you can run the inference with your model that you registered on new data. So it's just safely saved. And you can also share it. You just copy the folder to someone and give it to someone, and then they can install it on their computer, on their machine. And same with the comments, it's going to save it somewhere safe. There is also a user documentation. It will also get updated with the new commands. And for people who are interested, it is also a fast API, so it can be used in other tools or on other machines on servers. And I will implement the separate different steps because we're training a UMAP, we're training a prediction model, we have some visualization, and I was thinking it could be interesting to have just the optimization of the UMAP if you want to just run a UMAP on something, and it's going to test the different parameters for you. And then you could also train the UMAP, and then later you want to train the prediction model, or you have several, and because the two steps are separated. The UMAP is the first step on unlabeled data, and then you could have new labeled data and train a new model. And then when you acquire new data or you have a new question, you could use the same UMAP to train a new prediction model. So I think that could be interesting to have separate steps. The GUI is not yet available. And also, I started making a multi-user plus admin panel, so it could be installed on a server. And the admin could put some quota on the time, on the memory used, and things like that. And so everybody would be going in the same, and then the models could be in the same database. So people on the same machine, if the admin allows it, the people on the same machine could access the models of other people, and there are loads of things that we could do. So for the presentation, that's it for just the presentation of the tool, and I can also show you some of the output and some of the comments for people who are interested. And yeah, if you have questions at this point, yeah.
So when you do the clustering and then you say you can do like effect size maps, it's with like the labels you have on the data. So you do like
No.
the clusters and then you.
So you actually come back to all the points that are in the cluster. So that can be unlabeled data as well, because they are in the same. So it should be the same dimensions as your. So it depends on the data that you have, but in that case, it was spreadsheets. So I output the spreadsheets as if it was an observation in your because it comes back to the same size as your input. So it's as if it was one input, but it's the effect size instead of your actual values. So in the case of a spreadsheet, you retrieve a spreadsheet, and here I made a visualization as well, but both are available. And it's the same for images. You get an images back, and in any case, you get a NumPy file. So even if the output is not like a standard thing that we implemented yet, you get the arrays with the values of the effect size. Yeah, yeah.
What's the actual data you have for that construct?
So that's the HCP. They have the phenotypical. So I don't know how they measured it, but yes, yeah. For each participant, it's one number. And they had several. There was like an age adjusted value and a non-adjusted value. I don't remember which one I took here, but yeah, I didn't really dig into the how they what kind of test. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's for variables that's optimal for this sort of analysis.
That's a good question. I think it would depend on basically how strong your signal is. So if, for example, for the digits, so first the data is, I think it's 8 by 8, so 8 by 8 pixels. And the information is very strong to predict which digit it is. But in the case of the disconnectome, for example, you have loads of voxels that are completely useless to the prediction. I mean, most of the voxels are zero first, so these voxels are useless. But they won't be, so if they are just zero, UMAP won't have any problem just filtering that out. But if there is a lot of noise compared to what's explainable, you will need more data. So here I think it's pretty noisy. That's why also the prediction is not that great. So even though we have 1,000, yeah, yeah. But the intelligence variables are out. I took all the intelligence variables out. Otherwise, you would definitely have a correlation between fluid and crystal intelligence, for example. So of course I took that out. But I did. Yeah, there might be some variables that are. But that's also the point of doing UMAP is it doesn't care if the variables are associated or correlated. It's actually modeling that. So if two variables are very correlated, they will always be there. They will always drive the variability in the same way. So they will be clustered or embedded in the same area, basically. Um, any other question? Yeah. Mm. So for now, I was focusing on 2D. Because I also wanted to output the map, but it would work the same if we were increasing the dimensions. The only problem is I wouldn't be able to create the heat map. I don't know how I would. So yeah, that was the trade-off that we were thinking. We want to provide the heat map so people can see where the clusters are. But at the same time, that's true that sometimes 2 dimensions might be too low to explain the viability. Yeah. So in the optimization, in the tool, it's a dictionary of the different parameters for the UMAP. So if you wanted to explore more dimensions, you could make a range of dimensions in the dictionary. So for now, it's I didn't make an easy way to manipulate. So if you go in the dictionary, the dictionaries are in one file in the code. And if you want to do it, you can do it, but you have to know a little bit about code. That's it. But later, and if people think that it's interesting, maybe I'll try to find a way to make an interface where people, I mean, in the GUI, there could be like a menu where you have the dictionary and you want to add the parameters, and it just automatically adds it in the dictionary. Um, but I will have to disable the visualization of the heat maps, basically. But yeah, that's totally possible, and it's already possible in the optimization. Yeah. Um, any other question? Um, yeah, it's a bit early, but so yeah, for now it's just in command line, and I try I use the so it's not the basic command line. There are a little bit of help, hopefully. So if people are brave enough to try, I mean, for now it's not too complicated. If you use basic data, but then you have I had to put a lot of options depending on the orientation of your data, but that will be explained in the documentation. So there are like the quick start, and you can go pretty much as deep as you want in the details. Um, if you just want the quick start, that's fine. But if you want to go in, even in the development, if people want to add new features, you could even like fork the repository and propose like what's it called, a PR, pull request. Um, so yeah, if you're interested, it's on GitHub right now. So just emuses in at my GitHub. Um, and yeah, I don't want to go too much into the details because it's gonna bore everyone. All right.
The
Yeah.
input data type are images.
It doesn't have to be images. So for now, I made the pipeline to work with Nifty images, but it works also with spreadsheets. So if you input a CSV or an Excel file, it's gonna work, as well as uh, so I made it for the NIST data set, but in that case, it was more benchmark. So it's downloading it from the website, but it's pretty easy to add new types. So if you had PNG files or JPEG files, we could, and in the worst case, you can just input a matrix. So if you make your own 2D matrix, so observations and observation vectors and all your observations, and you input it, and that's gonna work. Yeah. It's just that at the end, it's going to give you another matrix. So for the effect size maps, that's going to be matrices, and it's not going to be your input type because it doesn't know it. But eventually, if people really want to use another type, I don't know, time series, we can work something together to add the type, and it's not going to be too much work. Yeah. All right.